Hello all, and welcome to my review of the next episode of Goosebumps. This one is episode 9, I think entitled Night of the Living Dummy 2. And I have a lot to say about this one. So, continuing on with the trend from the previous episodes, I am enjoying the entertainment value of this series a lot more now. I really think they've hit their stride in terms of what they're doing with the story. Like I said, I've accepted what they've done so far. It was not what I wanted, which was an anthology series, but I've moved on from that now because the characters, the acting, all that stuff is really great. And this episode was no exception, so I'm going to get into that. Full spoilers for this episode. Also spoilers for a few different things. Spoilers for The Exorcist. Spoilers for Pet Sematary. Spoilers for The Shining. And spoilers for School of Rock. Weirdly, I have spoilers for all of those things in this episode. In this episode. But I am going to... you'll see as I go through this why I have spoilers for those things. There's a lot of stuff in this episode that happened, and I might not remember all of it that I wanted to get to, but we'll see. So first things first, in the beginning of this episode, everything kind of going back to normal. I was not a big fan of the way that the kids and the adults just kind of walked away from Slappy. I thought that was so weird and so kind of dumb that they did that and just walked away. But it's kind of, they have to do that. It's nothing against the writers, really. It's just, in that moment, I was just like, oh man, that's so bad, right? But in the beginning of this episode, the actor who plays Nathan, I apologize for not knowing his name, it is such a good reminder of his acting skills, because I was getting serious Ned Schneebly vibes. That's the School of Rock thing. So the spoiler. The way he was talking to the kids, the way that he was just kind of the awkward teacher who's not necessarily pretending to be something he's not, but just those socially awkward vibes. I was getting the Ned Schneebly vibes, so I really, really like that. Then we get to the section about him writing the book, and this part had no right to be as funny as it was, with him changing everyone's names and calling them different things, like calling Slappy Snappy. It's so dumb. Small spoiler for the show Transparent here. Not really a spoiler, but one of the guys in this cast, I think, was in Transparent. I'm almost positive that it's the guy who's in Transparent, and there's a very prominent character in that series named Mora, and that guy in the show, in the Goosebumps show, is dating someone named Nora, and then there's a part where it says that one of the kids has a mother named Mora, which is the same name of the character from Transparent, which that guy is in. So I don't know if that was a reference to that or not, but that was really funny. Oh, also in this episode, spoilers for It Chapter 2. I have to say that too, because I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, so the guy's going through writing this story. I thought that all came together really well when they're having this dinner and everyone's kind of meeting together, and he's kind of crashing their party awkwardly. And when he's talking to the teens, just all those scenes, that secondhand embarrassment, it just landed so well. A lot of people don't like watching scenes like that. I was watching it with someone else, and I just kept looking over like, oh, no, please don't do that. Please don't say that. When the kids were getting ready to go on the road trip, I knew he was getting ready to invite himself on that road trip. And we've all had experiences like that, both being the person who invites themselves to something and being the person who someone else tries to crash something that was just kind of a thing between you and your family, or you and your friends, or whatever, right? We've all been on both sides of that. It's really weird. He played that moment really well. I slightly had a problem in this episode with the way that people were kind of disregarding him and being rude to him, because I was kind of like, oh, wait a minute, why is everyone being rude to him? If anything, the stuff that happened with him getting possessed was their fault, so why are they being rude to him now? It doesn't really make sense. I mean, I know he's kind of weird, but he's not so strange that people really should have cast him out, especially with everything that happened with Harold Biddle. I like that in this episode they literally say, kind of like Carrie meets The Shining. Like, they even say it. It's a very Stephen King centered episode, and Stephen King comes into the story a lot. So when everyone's meeting together at the restaurant about what happened with Slappy, that is very It Chapter 2. Or if you've ever just read the It novel, it's just basically It, because in the novel there is no Chapter 1, Chapter 2 distinction there. It's just all one story. It was very It Chapter 2, and I think that was almost, I would have to say that's deliberate. This episode paid a lot of homages to Stephen King. So when we get into the part about him having a writer's block, there was a really great joke here that I laughed so hard, and I bet it didn't land for a lot of people, but the joke is, oh, I'll have a Stephen King caliber ending coming up for you, right? Quickly, which is like, the whole joke is that the meme is that Stephen King doesn't write good endings, right? And that's like the only part of his work that people say usually is not good, right? So he just needs to really come up with a better ending so he can have an ending as good as Stephen King, because his ending right now is not very good. It's kind of ironic. It's a very ironic joke that I think lands. I have to mention something real quick. The whole thing about the dog getting killed, that was really weird. It came kind of out of nowhere. It was like Fifi. I think they should have set that up earlier. I really do. I laughed at that joke, which was really weird because I almost never laugh at dead animal jokes, right? Like, that's not typically a thing that draws laughter from me, but I did because just of the way it was edited and kind of cut together. So that was really strange. And then like the dog was just on the shelf as like a taxidermy animal. I don't know. It just didn't really play all that well. I don't think, like, it didn't really bother me or anything. It's just, it was kind of like out of nowhere and weird. And I should have known they were setting something up there. So anyway, we liked the way this episode was going up until the point, I think, where basically we got something that came out of nowhere, which is he needs this ending, right? So, first of all, okay, so I gotta back up for a second. We got this whole thing with the kids going out of town and having their adventure and the whole love triangle thing. And, you know, that stuff's fine. The acting is done well. I think I would mind that kind of story being in this type of episode a little bit more if the acting wasn't done so well. But these kids, they know what they're doing, right? There's some moments that are played well. You get the moment with one of the kids' dads just telling them to, like, basically be chaste, and it's really, really awkward. And I just looked over and I was like, that moment really worked, because that's exactly how conversations go. Even if it's a little bit hyperbolic, if it's a little bit exaggerated, that's how conversations go when you're a teenager. It's just like, hey, don't do this. And you're like, whoa, you know, and it's a weird thing. So that was done well. But then in the midst of all this, you know, he's trying to have this idea to finish this chapter. And right about then we're getting this whole thing with like Stephen King, and he's very much a Stephen King character at this point, right? It's kind of ironically paying homage to Stephen King in that way, because he's a very Stephen King-esque character. I mean, spoilers for The Shining, as far as a story impacting the way that your life is going, and I'm talking about The Shining novel, mind you, the story having an impact on your life and events in your life starting to match up with that story and having a block where you can't think of a good ending, that's like directly from The Shining. And then you add in the part where he's out in the snow going up the mountain looking for Slappy, and he goes, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be great, because right when he has this revelation about the ending, that's when Slappy's going to sneak up on him, right? Because Slappy was alive. And then he's like, I'm a dummy. And then there's a dummy there. And they made that part funny. But then, like I said, this starts to take a turn here, because him reanimating this doll didn't make sense to me on two levels. First of all, wasn't Slappy already alive anyway? Like, what was the point of having his eye open back up at the end if he was going to be reanimated with a spell? I think that should have been different. I think maybe Nate should have found him, and then he just like was reluctant to destroy him, and then that's what led to him coming back to life or something, because he had a chance to get his life force back or something like that would have been less out of character and out of left field for Nathan, because I just think the acting was done well. He did the best he could with that moment, but that just came completely out of left field. I thought it was just really random that he would read that card, and it was so random that I thought he was possessed again. And it's just, and the dog coming back to life. I thought it was a little weird for them to kill the dog, so it's just kind of having the dog reanimate, I thought made sense. But that's the moment where I just really went, okay, I don't like this character anymore. It's just so random and weird. I just think that part of it in an episode that's written so well otherwise, just having that happen, I just feel like there was a page or something taken out of the script, or not. I don't even know what you could have put in that page to make that make sense in this context, unfortunately. So I think just another pass on that part. Just rewriting a couple of things in that moment would have made that make so much more sense. Have it play into the things we've already established about Nate, rather than just having it be like, yeah, and sometimes he's so stupid that he goes back and does something that he really shouldn't have done to write a book. He cares about these teenagers, none of this was his fault, but he needs an ending to his book, so he's suddenly going to be that selfish where he would just bring back a killer dummy? I just don't think that's consistent with his character. It's consistent with his character's folly. That is the kind of thing that would happen to his character. It's the kind of thing that if you didn't spend 9 episodes with that character, understanding him, you might think he would do, but knowing his moral compass, I don't think that's something he would have done. He's a character who's sympathetic, he's kind of looking for friends, he's a little bit weird, but he hasn't really shown that he's like skipping out on his moral compass. He went to great lengths to try to defeat Harold Biddle. So this is a guy who clearly wants to defeat the enemy. So why would he bring back Slappy so he can help him write an ending? They didn't even tease the thing like, I can bring your dog back to life. If you resurrect me, I can bring your dog back to life. That would have been something, I still wouldn't have liked it, but it would have made more sense because he lost something that's dear to him, and that would have been a way. But they didn't do any of that. They just had him basically bring the doll back for fame, which is really out of character for him. So anyway, that's a big criticism I have of this episode. But I didn't really mind that much by the ending, because I have to say, I know I say that a lot, this episode was the first episode, I think, which was really leaning into the horror, where it actually sort of became scary in a couple places. And the horror usually makes me laugh because, I don't know, I like when horror is done well. I don't like gore. I'm not a person who's into gore. I'm not a person who's into the sort of suffering you see in horror movies where someone's like watching their like family or friend die. I don't enjoy that kind of thing at all in horror films. I think it's just a negative experience for me. And I know everyone's different, right? Some people like when the stakes are high. Some people aren't bothered by the gore. But I've never liked that stuff. But when stuff is genuinely creepy, like when you deliver a good effect, I mean, as a person who's kind of an amateur writer myself, I know how hard it is to establish something that is simultaneously, it gives you enough of a creep factor, and it's not going to be so contrived that people are going to roll their eyes. I know how hard that is. So when they actually deliver something and it really lands, sometimes that makes me laugh, because it's just like, it's almost like when you see a really good visual effect and you're like, how did they do that, right? And this is not so much that it's like, how did they do that? It's more like, wow, that was really well done. Like the corpse coming up and then fixing itself, that was really creepy. I've never thought about that effect before. Of like, I've seen the effect done the other way around, where it's a person and they become a corpse. Like that, that's always going to be horror, right? But to have a corpse become a person and for it to somehow be creepier than if it was the other way around is really well done. And when the dog started baring its teeth and the eyes were glowing red, I was getting major Barking Ghost vibes from the cover of Barking Ghost by R.L. Stine. But that part made me laugh too, because I was like, that was really nice. That was really nicely done. I'm not sure if that was a specific element taken from that or not. Side note, was that R.L. Stine in that podcast? I'm almost certain that I know I might look foolish if it wasn't, but was that R.L. Stine talking in that podcast at the beginning there? I thought it was. That was really funny. I mean, it wasn't like inherently funny, like haha, it's R.L. Stine, but I just thought that sounds a lot like R.L. Stine, because if you think about it, I haven't really heard R.L. Stine speak in at least like 30 years. I'm gonna say, maybe. Is it 30 years? No, it wouldn't have been 30. I don't know. Around 30 years since I saw him in an on-screen appearance. So that guy in the podcast did sound a little bit older, but R.L. Stine is 30 years older now. So was that him there? I don't know. Anyway, getting to the end, the stuff comes... Oh, one more thing I have to say. I'm so sorry to go back. The way that they dismissed Nate was not something I particularly liked, but I do think that some of the execution, as far as the actors playing that off, these actors are great. When Nate's asking the one guy, like, can I see you later? And he's like, yeah, all right. That made me laugh so much. Anyway, getting to the end with them all coming back and seeing the dummy turn the one guy back into another, or not back into, but turn him to a dummy, and then seeing the reanimated corpse, and then ending it right there. I had one of those moments where you're watching an episode and you're like, oh, please end it right here, because this would be a perfect ending to the episode. They ended it there. And then it was Them Bones, which I don't know why I like that so much as the end credits song, but I like the song Them Bones. It's always been a song that's just, I don't really know what words I would use to describe it. I think it's just a very visceral rock song that you don't take too seriously, but it is a really nice song, and it's like that was extremely fitting for the ending of this episode. They've been doing really well with the post-credits songs. And like I said, in one episode where they had everyone sing through the floor, and they could have put Don't Fear the Reaper there, but they put like Black Hole Sun there for some reason. It just fits, you know. So if I didn't know anything about Goosebumps, I would really like this series. If I'm a person who likes Goosebumps, wants an anthology, watches this instead, I'm still liking it because of the homages to Goosebumps. And all the stuff with Stephen King in this episode, it was really nice. The one big criticism I have is the thing with Nathan just completely doing something that I think he would not do. But, you know, not everything can be perfect. It's fine. You know, I'm still excited to see the finale. We're going to be watching the finale soon. Actually, I'm recording this much later, you probably noticed. But I wanted to go ahead and put my review out for episode 9 before I got to the finale. Anyway, guys, if I missed anything this episode, I'm sorry. I will talk about it in my episode 10 review, probably things I might think of between now and then in my season 1 review. I hope they do make another season. This show, I think, is working really well. It's coming together. The jokes are landing. The plots are interesting. And Slappy is actually pretty creepy. I'm glad they're doing something different with Slappy. I think it would have been fine to bring back the voice of like, hello, Jimmy. The name's Slappy. You know, I think that would have been fine to bring back that voice. Or even do something different. I think it's a really weird angle to go with Slappy, be like a really deep voice. Just like have Slappy be like, I'm Slappy, hello. You know, almost like a, well, there was a TV show in the 90s where they had a Living Doll episode, and he was like, hi. And if you don't know what episode I'm talking about, I'm sorry. But if you know what that is, it was almost like that, the thing I just tried to do. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I like the voice they're doing now. And it's working. And the jokes, like I said, they're making us laugh. It's so funny. It's a good balance of comedy and horror, which is it's really hard to do that without the whole thing being super on the nose. And I just say hats off to these actors and these directors. They know what they're doing. Anyway, look forward to seeing you guys in episode 10 for the finale. In the meantime, please leave your thoughts below. Happy November. Glad to be out of October, getting closer to Christmas, still watching spooky stuff. That's what Goosebumps is all about. Heck yeah, scary stuff all year round. See you guys later. Thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye. Hey guys, it's the next day, and I realized that I forgot to put a couple of the references that I mentioned in the beginning in this video, because I said there were spoilers for The Exorcist, and I said there were spoilers for Pet Sematary. And there's not really a good place to put that in the video, so I'll just kind of tack it on to the ending here. So basically, in one part of this episode, when Slappy's being reassembled by magical forces, there is a little moment where his head turns around 180 degrees, and the orchestra does this thing like... And if you hadn't seen The Exorcist and heard Night of the Electric Insects in that movie, you might have missed that. But I think that was a little reference to The Exorcist right there in the score with the head spinning. So it was a nice little reference. I liked it. And then there was another thing which I was going to say, which is the Stephen King books and movies being referenced in this episode. I think there was a little bit of an homage to Pet Sematary there with the dog coming back to life, and then him being, of course, digging up a body at the time. I just think it was a little bit of a reference to that film or that book, whichever way you want to look at it. So I liked both of those little things. I like little Easter eggs, little nods they put in to other content in horror. If you've seen Stranger Things season 4, you'll know that they put a ton of references in to that season, references to other horror things that came out mostly in the 80s. I just really like when they do that kind of thing. Anyway, guys, for real this time, talk to you later, and leave a comment below. Bye-bye.